Hello and welcome to Find Your Freedom, a podcast dedicated to helping you truly find freedom in all aspects of life. Join your hosts and their expert guests as they share practical tips and strategies for finding more freedom in your life. It's time to take control of your life and create the future you want. Let's find your freedom. Here are your hosts, Lenny the Boss and Omid Rad Investor.
We are back with another amazing episode of Find Your Freedom. And let me tell you, I am super excited to get connected with this next guest that we have on today because I was unable to connect with her while we were in Austin. She's going to tell you a crazy story about, not Austin, I'm sorry, in Nashville. She's going to tell you a crazy story about that. But before we jump into that, we have a freedom kit for you that is free and is easily downloadable and is used for you to build your journey. All right. You go to www.findyourfreedom.com/freedom kit. Once again, www.findyourfreedom.com/freedom kit. Absolutely free, easily downloadable. Go out and get it. All right. So our next guest friend that we have here, she's she's a co-host of the a hospitable author book, right? Super cool about that. She has a fantastic podcast, a Wed and Bed podcast, which we want to get into that, where she's taking the short-term rentals and the wedding venues and bringing them all together for maximum revenue. So I'm very, very interested to hearing how all that flows. So I don't even want to go on any longer. We're going to bring in your friend, our new friend, Helen Christopher. How you doing? How you feeling?
I'm good, Lenny. I should just have you follow me around all day and just like pump me up. Like this would be great. Like you'd be my personal hype man. You in for it?
Hey, listen, man, I'm very expensive, so if you could afford me, I am 100% there. I just let you know I do the first one for free, but other than that,
Well, thank you, Lenny. Maybe next year. Give me a year and we'll see where I'm at.
hey, listen, look, but hey, I can work with you too. But I'm okay with ground up. But hey, so Helen, before we get into your story and everything you got going on, can you just give the audience a little background on yourself?
Yeah, I'll give you the short version. So I was a teacher for 17 years and I was feeling that I needed a change. I needed to do something that allowed me to be creative and to try new things. So I decided to buy a former girls' summer camp. And with that, my family and I moved into the nurse's office, and we have been renovating the buildings that are on site. And now we've been hosting weddings, events, and we also do short term rentals. We do a mix. That's the short story. So I left teaching, moved into a nurse's office, and haven't looked back since.
Wow. So, okay. So you're a teacher.
I know that's a
And
lot. Yeah,
yeah. So, okay. So you're a teacher, 17
I was.
years.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
were, okay, you were, but I feel like you're always a teacher. Like, I feel
Yes.
like that skill never really goes away. So
Mhm.
what inspired you to decide, hey, like, is that like a midlife crisis, or is it like you had this like epiphany? Like what made you decide? Because that's such a big move. Like some people,
Yeah.
a lot of people in
Yeah.
this space, yeah. What do you do?
Yeah.
Like,
So yeah, sorry to interrupt you. My son who's 13 said yes, it was a midlife crisis. But I don't think it is. I do think that as people, we change. And the teaching world, the education world had also changed in the span of 17 years. So in the beginning of my teaching career, I could do some really fun things with the kids, hands-on activities. We used to do all these great things. And over the last 5 years, I was had a very strict regimen schedule I was following. It was a lot of book work and papers and things like that. And I was bored. I was completely bored. And I thought, if I'm bored, there's no way these children are having fun. I mean, at least I get paid to do this. They have to sit there. So I knew at that point that if I wasn't 100% into it anymore, that I needed to do something else. And this property had come for sale, which it's funny because during COVID, I was the remote teacher. So I had to teach 20 some odd second graders on a computer all day long. So it was going really well, as you can imagine. So I mean, can you imagine 7-year-olds? We're like, all right, guys, we're gonna start. Here's how you and complete a sentence. Like that's where we were. Like this is how you type a sentence. It was terrible. But I decided, like everybody else during COVID, to do something else. So I signed up to be a realtor. So turns out I'm not a good realtor. It's not my thing. But it did lead me to finding this property because while I was doing the real estate course, they were telling you, okay, go on Zillow, go on realtor.com, go on those different things to kind of familiar yourself with properties. And I saw this place, Brookledge. And I had attended a wedding here many years ago, in 2015. And I always loved this property. I thought it was so cool. So when I saw it for sale, I told my husband, and he was like, let's call right now. And that's kind of how it started. We found the property kind of found us through me wanting to do a change of career.
Awesome. I'm gonna tell you something. Um, Journey is amazing. And what I really love within what you just shared is that you said, "Hey, during this time, I'm going to become a realtor," right? But your goal wasn't to be an investor. Your goal was to be a realtor. But by becoming a realtor, you now became an investor, and you never probably would have been an investor without becoming a realtor. And I really want just the listeners to kind of tune in on that. On You got to sit here and I call it going through the back door to get to the front door. You know, and that's what you did. But tell us more about this property. Okay, so you're this realtor. You're not the best at being a realtor, but you happen to find a property that you can purchase. So give us a little more insight on it. Like, tell us, how big it is, what it's about, what are your plans, what it looks like today, what it's going to look like tomorrow.
Yeah. So the property actually, when we went to look at it, it was actually under contract. So there was a company in New Jersey that had already had it under contract, and they were going to turn the property into an RV park. For whatever reason, it fell through, and we told the owners, if it falls through, let us know. And it did fall through, but it took like 10 months. So when people think, oh, things happen really quickly, we waited for quite a while for the property. And we basically called the owners every month and said, hey, did it fall through yet? So every month we just kept, we wanted them to remember us. We didn't want them, if something happened, to forget that we were the ones that wanted it next. So it did fall through. We were also watching the board minutes because they had to present themselves at the board to get permission. So we were looking at the minutes, seeing what was happening. Is this going to go through? So when it fell through and we moved on the property, we realized we got really lucky. So we are located about 3 hours north of New York City. Near like the nearest bigger city would be Saratoga Springs, which is a very touristic, busy place in the summer. If you're into horse racing at all, it's the third race for the Triple Crown.
Oh,
So the
wow.
Kentucky Derby, Belmont, and then Saratoga is your third one. So for us to find this property, so I'm going to paint the picture, okay? It's 60 acres, two ponds, a stream throughout. There are views of the Vermont mountains, maple trees, oak trees all throughout, and it's always 5 degrees cooler than Saratoga Springs. So you're always comfortable here. There's no bugs. Like everyone thinks you're going to be really buggy. It's not. It's just like my husband says, it's very a Hallmark-ish. Like it's a kind
Oh,
of a
wow.
setting for a Hallmark movie kind of a place. And the property had 3 pavilions. It had 2 bathhouses. Let's see what else. It had a lodge and a couple cabins, and then the nurse's office, which is where we live now.
Right.
So when we moved on site, we moved to the nurse's office, which was 400 square feet. So our entire family and the 2 dogs moved into that, and we started renovating the property. And at that point, we were just going to do short-term rentals. So we were going to update the cabins and just focus on that. And we brought other cabins in. We made cabins, added them. We added glamping tents this year, so we can basically keep adding. But everything right now is within 15 to 20 acres of the property, and there's 40 acres untouched at the moment.
Wow. Okay. So how did this conversation even happen? Okay. So, hey, husband, I want to just not do teaching anymore. I'm over it. I want to buy this property, and we're gonna live in this nurse's office that's 400 square feet. Like, how does that conversation go, and how do you get on the same page? Let's say somebody wants to do the same thing that you're doing.
Yeah, so my husband knew for a while that teaching was no longer fulfilling as a career. And I've been talking about it, which I'd already been in the. He's like, do whatever you want as long as you find a way to contribute to the family. As long as it's something good. The hard part we had was my husband was also a business owner, so he owns an auto repair shop, and all of our health benefits and everything was through me because I was the W-2 earner. So that was one of the big fears was, okay, so now we're going to be both business owners and neither one of us is going to have a W-2. And what are we going to do for, healthcare and all of that? So that was a hard sell for him. That took a little while. Like, why would you leave a job that has a great retirement, that you get summers off, all the things we think about teaching careers. And I just told him, like, you live life once. I cannot picture myself doing this for 13 more years.
Wow.
I just can't. So he was okay once I found Brookledge. He was on board because he already loved that place and he loved the idea of living there. So it wasn't that hard of a sell because he already knew the place and he already loved it.
Well, that's interesting because so your husband owns a brick and mortar, right?
Yeah. It's a fairly large auto repair shop. The building I think is like 10,000 square feet.
Okay,
He's been in business for 20 years, so it's not. We've been in the business world for a little while.
gotcha. So what's the commute? Because you guys moved into this location. What's the commute to from the new location now, the nursing house, right,
Mhm.
to the I guess to the auto shop that you guys own?
It's 2 miles.
Oh, okay. So it's,
Right around.
okay. Oh yeah, it's no change in your life. Is what?
No.
Okay,
So we
okay.
actually had expanded the auto repair shop, and when we expanded it, we moved it to Galway, and the property we bought is in Galway. So it just worked out that way. We got super lucky. And actually, my husband, as of this week, is leaving the auto repair shop and coming and joining me full time.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
Congratulations on that.
yeah. So
Let
that's
me
going to be a big change.
let me ask you a question. So, financing when it
Mhm.
comes to purchasing this place, um, is the financing any different because you're actually using it as a primary residence versus just buying it flat out as, I guess, an investment?
Yeah, so it's a little different. The way we were able to finance it was we sold our house. So we had a house that we had renovated. We bought it really like at a great price many years ago, and we sold it at the height of COVID. So it was when the prices were going crazy. So we were able to make a good return on it, and we used that money to purchase the property. And since the property wasn't really, it was a special buyer for this place because you couldn't really live on it unless you put work into it. So we were able to get it for a really good price. And so that's how we were able to do that. But the funny thing is, you're allowed to host weddings or to have like a short term rental, like, at your own place. So it did open up because we live here, it did open up some doors as far as the business aspect.
So you talked about building
Awesome.
cabins, and that you have all this acreage that's kind of untouched. So walk us through like how did you guys come up with that concept, and like how do you source cabins once you actually have the land? So let's say somebody wants to, they're looking to buy land, and then now they want to kind of build on top of that. So walk us through that process, for somebody who's interested in doing something like that.
Yeah, so the first thing we did is I knew I wanted to keep the nostalgic feel of the property. So the fact that it was a summer camp and it was and the heyday of the summer camp was the 70s and 80s. So that's where our theme is. So if you go in the cabins, it's 70s and 80s. So I knew I wanted to keep that. And for me, when I think of a cabin, I think of the Lincoln Log toys. Like the I'm talking about, the green roof, the logs.
Yep.
So I
Mm.
wanted to bring a kid's Lincoln Log house onto the property as a rental. And what I did was, there are companies, and I don't know if this is out where you are, but where we are, there are like shed companies that will build like basically just the outside. Like you'll have the roof, the walls, the window, the doors, and you've got to finish the inside. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we have those here, and we have a large Amish population about an hour from us. And so I found this company where they were building these log cabins, and so we designed one to look like a Lincoln Log house. They dropped the cabin on the property, and then it was our responsibility to bring the power to it, add the cabinets, the bedding, that type of a thing. So that's what we did to start off. We got a great deal because the cabin that we wanted, we only paid like $16,000 for it. I
Say
know.
what?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Hold up. Stop the press.
Yes. It was, yes. But it was 16,000 delivered. So they brought it to the site, but that meant that there's no running water in it. It's just like a fancy shed at that point. And what we did is we created like a studio. So we have a custom queen bunk bed, so it sleeps four. We have a little kitchenette, and we have a VCR TV, because remember it's 80s. So it's all like that vintage stuff, but the guests have to use the bathhouses. So there's no bathroom inside. So it's a small space. I think it's 14 by 20. So it's not huge, but it's rented constantly. Like people love it.
So
Wow.
cool.
Wow. 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 So let
Yeah.
me ask you. Okay, so I mean, when I think of 16K for dropping down, what you have and the design, I think is great. So, um, did you have to go through any permitting, like to get this done? Because
Yes.
I hear that you got to bring in electric, but you said that the running water is outside, right? So I'm not sure if you brought plumbing into the place as well. But can you tell us a little bit about that, kind of the process of going through that?
Yes. So we did have to bring the water and the electricity into there. We also had to bring a heat source because we live in upstate New York, so it's winter. So those are the things we had to bring in. And I could not say that I live in a better community. We don't have a zoning board here. So we just have a planning board. I know, Lenny, I know. We have a planning board. So we had to go to the planning board, show them what we were hoping to do, and then they gave us the thumbs up, and that was it. Like it was an absolute blessing. I came from another community that was the complete opposite.
Mhm.
Like it would take 6 months just to even get to the meeting. I went down there, and like 2 weeks later, I was at the meeting. They asked me a few questions. The next month, they just had to do like a public hearing for the community, and that was it. Like it was really easy. People loved that we weren't doing RVs. They just didn't
Mm.
want all of the campers coming. I get it. That's a lot more noise, and they didn't want it going by their house. So when they saw we were keeping the cabins and adding a couple glamping tents, they were all for
Wow.
it.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, we got really lucky.
Wow.
So walk us through. So we talked a little about the cabins, and so walk me through the glamping sites. So let's say there's alternative options. So walk me through what that experience is, and what somebody is going to get out of, like, renting in at your, in the area.
Are you familiar with glamping tents?
Not
Have either of you
super,
participated
like,
in one?
I'm
not
No?
not
super.
I'm
Yeah.
not that familiar. So I guess can you
Okay.
give us
Yeah.
a little rundown of what glamming tents are?
Okay. So they are thick canvas tents. So the ones that we have are white and they're rectangular, but sometimes you'll see them circular, like they call them big bell tents. I actually liked the rectangular tents because I could add lots of windows. So my tents have 5 huge windows in them, plus the door. So that brings in a lot of light, which is great for pictures. This light and bright. So my glamping tents have power. We have 2 queen beds. We have a coffee bar, a table. There are lamps, electricity all in there, and fans. And they are set up from spring to fall. And then in
Mm,
the wintertime, we have to take them down. So
mm,
that's kind of how they're set up. The initial investment is not nearly as much as like a house, but you do have to build a platform. You do have to build a structure for it. So there are some initial things that you have to invest in, but so far they've been very well received. We just opened them up this year. We started working on it last year, but we just began, goodness, in May. In May was when we first started getting our guests, and they're loving it so far.
that's great. I love that, you're taking that space and you're utilizing it, and you're also utilizing it in manners that the town appreciate, right? So they're sitting there giving you approval, and just to let you know, you manifest this, right? You say you got lucky. That wasn't luck. You put in work. You guys called every month, stayed on track to make sure that you know what's going on. You said you was watching the board or something like that because whoever was trying to purchase it, they had to go through their you know channels to purchase it, and so you guys are on it, and because I actually got 2 properties myself by doing something similar, just constantly being in contact with the realtor, so I totally understand it. But these campsites, you was mentioning that you have to take them down and put them up. I mean, I'm pretty sure there's a cost involved with that. Is that something that's minor, or is that significant?
No, it's not too bad. So what we did is we knew that we wanted to make it as much in tuned with nature as we could. So we cut down some trees, we stripped the bark, and then we used that to create the framing. So the issue is you have your tent and then there's a rain fly that goes over it. Your rain fly cannot sit on the tent for long periods of time. So if you're just going to go camping for a week, that's fine. But if you're going to leave it for months like we are, there has to be an air gap because otherwise you're going to create the moisture and the tents will mold.
Mm.
So those of you who are looking to do glamping tents, make sure you have that spacing because that's one of the biggest problems with glamping tents is the mold, the
Oh,
moisture,
wow.
which is another reason why I wanted all the windows because then I can increase the air circulation. I'm giving you
Ah,
all the tips here, Lenny.
I see.
Yeah.
I'm at all. Go ahead. Keep them rolling.
So I say my husband spent weekends cutting these trees down, debarking them, and he made a frame. So the tent is under this wooden frame, big timber structure, and then the fly, like tarp they call it, goes over that wooden structure. So that leaves a good gap in between the two. So what will happen is we will take the tent down, but that main structure can stay. So the tent itself,
Mm.
you can do it in a day to take it up and down. It's
Oh,
not
wow.
bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the hard part though is taking the beds apart, having a place to store the mattresses, that piece. So that's the taking the furniture out is the longest part.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
And
don't
you
know
have to have a
what.
place to store it, like you don't want to put it in a spot like a barn where critters can get into it.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
want
that
it
wouldn't be a good thing.
no, but that's the stuff I deal with in the woods. I mean, chipmunks and little things like that. They're my
Little
hardest
chipmunks.
critics.
So you
I
you
don't know
been out.
why I'm picturing
Yeah,
like. Yeah, I don't know why I'm picturing like mound men, or so it's like I picture your husband with this big beard, with like a flannel shirt, with a big axe, with some tight jeans, big boots, like chopping down a tree. Yeah.
Yeah, you're pretty spot on. So he has
Oh,
beard, he wears flannel, but not the tight jeans. You'll find
oh,
him in like cargo pants, something like that.
oh, there
Yeah,
you go. I love it.
yeah, but you're
Oh,
right. He's out there with the chainsaw though, not an axe, a
oh,
chainsaw.
there you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I guess let's say somebody wants to do exactly what you're doing. What is what was like the biggest obstacle versus meaning like what was your vision, and what are the some of the challenges that you encountered that maybe you didn't anticipate, that somebody can anticipate if they want to do what you're doing.
Yeah, so my vision was to have a place where people could come and disconnect. So our biggest kind of like our avatar is really coming from New York City. People who want peace and quiet, they don't want the phones, they just want to be left alone. So that's been our biggest clientele is just people looking to disconnect. So that's where the tents, well, I told my husband, I'm like, let's add the tents because that's kind of the next thing. And glamping is such a big, I don't know if it's big where you are, but up here, people are obsessed with it. Do you have
Wow.
glamping where you guys are?
Well, I'm not too far from you. I'm in Philadelphia.
Okay.
So, and the answer is no. It's a city, right?
Yeah.
you know. But Omid, I'm not sure. Omid's in LA area.
I mean, there's like glamping discussions around like local campsites, but I think it's whether it's like at the beach, so you can go camping on the beach. But I feel like the California style is a little bit different, and even Joshua Tree, people like the tiny homes over like the
Yes.
glamping. So it's just like luxury. They think it's glamping, but it's really they're just staying at a home, but it's a small home. So I just think it just depends on the market and the area. But I know Arizona, there's glamping is popular, so I think it just depends.
Yeah, where we are, so we're considered the Adirondacks, which is very
Mm,
mountainous and kind of
hmm.
glamping fits in that theme.
Yeah.
And we also have, so of our properties, each one kind of has its own vibe that would welcome a guest. We have an off-grid cottage that sits on these huge boulders. They're about 20 feet high, and the water surrounds you. Like there's like little waterfalls and streams. So that the people who rent that, they just want they don't want to see anyone. They just want to be left alone. The little Lincoln log house cabin, that one sits in front of the pond and it's kind of in the heart of everything that's going on. So people who have kids or want to swim in the pond, canoe, it's right there for them. Then we have the glamping tents, which the people who are renting that tend to be like girlfriends that want to go away together, or a lot of couples doing like a romantic kind of a thing. And then we have the lodge, which that one sleeps 8 people. It has a full kitchen, full bathroom. It has a 20-foot tree in the center of it, which is why we call it the Treehouse Lodge. But the lodge we also use for small events. And we slowly started in adding in the events piece, and we realized that the generation coming up, so I'm in my 40s, the people who are in their 20s getting married, they're looking for like wedding weekends. So we started getting inquiries about, can
Mm.
we rent your whole place so that we can get married there, we can all stay there for a weekend. And that's kind of, so our vision has kind of changed where our spaces, we do offer short-term rentals, but we also have been looking to how can we maximize this space to incorporate events and include things in the wedding kind of realm. So it's changed a little bit.
That's special, and different, right? So if you don't mind, can we get into just a little bit of like revenue? Like what kind of revenue are you pulling in?
So weddings. So right now we are just finishing as we speak our construction. So we've been in renovation mode for 2 years, and we're just now starting to not, as we say, hemorrhage money. Like now things are just starting to come back a little bit. But when it comes to weddings, there's definitely a higher profitability with weddings. We know that weddings are very expensive, but there's also more money that you've got to put out. So that advertising, like advertising on the OTAs for short-term rentals, is nothing like a wedding.
Hmm.
I have to advertise on like the knot or the wedding wire, and that's anywhere from $500 to $1,000 a month, depending on the package you pick. So up front, you could be spending 12 grand a year just to advertise, and you don't know if you're gonna get weddings or not.
Hmm.
However, if you have a place like my Treehouse Lodge can accommodate a small event in about 20 to 30 people, so I can do a micro wedding or an elopement. And if you include that information in your OTAs, people are going to message you. People are going to ask you about it. And you can do an event fee to tack on to your short-term rental, their stay. You would just incorporate an event fee for those extra people, and then you're done. You give them their contract, tell them how many people they're allowed to have, and there's a lot of other ways to protect yourself, and those are the things that Ruby and I talk about in the Wed in Bed podcast. How can you take a space that would allow for a small wedding, or maybe you're great for a bridal suite if you're close to a wedding venue? How can you tap into those areas where this younger generation, they are looking for it? And if you aren't advertising for weddings, that's okay, because they're going to find you and have a wedding when you don't even know that they're doing, like, they're doing it behind your back. So you can either tap into that and make that extra profit, or just, close your eyes and pretend like it's not happening, but it's happening. It's happening. I know somebody who's doing it actually as we speak. This weekend is planning their wedding at an Airbnb, and they didn't let the host know. They're just doing it. So it happens. So it's a great, if you know it's something that's coming up, like, hop on the wagon, because this is what they're doing. They don't want to get married at the big, humongous, hotels like we used to do many years ago. So they're looking for something different, and they're going to Airbnb and Verbo and all of those things to find those unique places and get married.
So the nurse's house, is that um, what's the long term vision for it, and or like what's the long term vision for even like your guys's, like, where your guys stay? So I know it's, some people, I could see, like, somebody saying, hey, this, I can do this for so long, but how's like the whole process going with that, and the vision with that?
Yeah, it's funny you ask that, because so when we moved on the property, my son said I had big dreams that were not realistic. So we moved on the cabin. It was 400 square feet, which for most people that's like their master bedroom. And it had in it a pellet stove, a microwave, and a fridge, and that was it. So we had to put in addition. So basically, like, where you look, I know people can't see, but where you are, we added this wall here to make a bedroom for my son, and that hole there was the door to the outside. I'm sitting in the center of the house. So to give you an idea of, that's how big it was. So we added a bedroom and a bathroom to it to make it livable. Our goal was a year. So we're on 2 years now, and I don't think we will be building anytime soon. We're kind of waiting to see what goes on with the economy, and the cost of building things is super expensive. But we do have a spot on the property. We have a five. We moved it to a 2 year goal to a 5 year goal to build something a little bit bigger. Actually, not a whole lot bigger than what we're in now, but it would be nice to have a basement and more storage. So it's a little hard. It's a little hard because I don't have a single closet. So yeah.
No, I mean, I love the fact that you're even doing this. I think this is like very bold, but it's like you're seeing your vision kind of come to life little by little, and it's an amazing thing. I think it's like a beautiful thing, and not a lot of people would take that risk, especially during that alleged midlife crisis.
Yeah, it was a crisis.
Yeah.
I jumped ship really quick out of the teaching world. And it's okay. We a lot of times, and especially in the teaching world, and I did feel this, and people don't talk about this enough. I did feel an immense guilt for leaving. I felt like I let down my students, and I felt like I was leaving my colleagues in the trenches. And here I am moving to the woods, hanging out with beautiful brides and meeting amazing people from around the world. And they're in there doing like the daily grind. My
Mm.
husband, we've been talking a lot about his transition here, and he's feeling the same thing. And I think we talk a lot about how, we just quit and we go on to something else. But there's like there's a little bit of a grieving process, a little bit of a, oh my goodness, I've put all this time, energy, and money into something, and now it's just gone, and I'm going to go do something else.
Mm.
And I don't think people talk about that. They talk about taking that risk to make the change, but you also have to almost say, like, thank you for those 17 years and those amazing people that I met, and the students that I got to spend time with. And now I'm going to do something else. But you almost need that, like, moment to say goodbye. And I feel like we don't talk about that enough.
Mm.
That was the hardest part. And seeing people that I am still teaching with, or that are still teaching, they'll say, "Oh my goodness, I wish I could do what you're doing," or "I wish there was a way that I could leave teaching and do something else." And there's a little bit of guilt on my end that I was able to do it. And I just feel like people don't talk about that piece. There's like there's like an adjustment factor there.
Wow, and I was going to ask you that. So, I was going to ask you, um, you were working in this world for 17 years. So, you know, um, I know you have a lot of friends in this world, and what are they saying to you now that they're seeing, some of the success of you taking the leap? If you could talk to some of the teachers out there right now, that is having their midlife crisis, what are some of the words you would tell them?
We're getting deep now. I would, the thing is, as teachers, we think that the only thing we can do is teach, but the skill set that we create in the classroom really transfers nicely to a lot of other careers. The fact that I know how to plan a day and structure a day, I use that to help structure what my business would look like. We are planners. We can quickly shift. We're very flexible people. I mean, we create these lesson plans and then the students do something completely different. Um, so we have a lot of skill sets. And actually, I was talking to somebody. There's all these amazing conferences that are going on around the country. And I had an opportunity to talk to somebody in Nashville. And a lot of the things I'm seeing that are missing in conferences is the engagement factor. And I know, Omid, you and I were talking about this. As teachers, we know how to take information and give it or present it in a way that people are going to remember it, learn it, retain it. These conferences, they need like a teacher to teach them how to present this information. And I noticed that at Nashville, and I'm not knocking their conference. They had a lot of wonderful information, but there was things that they could do that would as- help to get that information out in a more concise manner. And I'm seeing that a lot in conferences. And I think teachers, if you're looking for something to do, find these conferences and talk to them about how they can create a really engaging presentation, because that's what we do, or what I used to do, all day long. I mean, our job is to perform in front of these students, to have them learn how to add, subtract, multiply, all of those things. And I think the conference world might be an avenue for teachers.
I think that's powerful. I really want to circle back on the grieving process. Like as you were
Yeah.
describing this, I was thinking about myself. So just like you, I walked away from my W-2, and that was 18 years in the corporate world. And there's this period where you're just trying to figure out, okay, like there's guilt, and what do you do with it? And how do you start like really embracing kind of the new journey? And then how do you embrace the conversations as you're kind of sometimes come across your past? And that's a very like challenging thing that I deal with sometimes. But I like the way you described it. I like the way you even like talk, share with what you do with teachers and people in the space, and how they can share that skill set with um, just other people, other professionals that are in kind of the teaching space, and they're just learning. Like a lot of people are experts at maybe what they do, but they're not experts at teaching, and so
Yeah.
kind of translating those skills over. Um, so what's next for you? So maybe you can kind of talk us through, like, you've been, I think you talk mentioned your podcast a little bit, but just kind of like let us know like what you're working on currently, and how that's going.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to circle back to what you just said, though.
Yeah.
When people are leaving, and you were saying like being a master of that kind of skill. Let's be real. I didn't know what I was doing. I've never owned a summer camp before.
Yeah.
There was a lot of YouTube University. There was a lot of listening to podcasts. And I also wasn't afraid to find people who knew what they were doing and ask them. And I think it's okay if you don't know what you're doing. but you have to be upfront and honest, and then find, like Lenny says, find your journey, find your people who are going to help you get to that next step. And for me, it was meeting with podcasts. I went on social media. I looked for all the people that were doing things similar to what I wanted to do, and I would reach out to them. So, take the jump. You'll figure it out. But yeah, like what's next? So we are now just entering our busy event season. So with our pavilion, we can accommodate 200 people. So that's pretty awesome that we have that kind of a space. So we have a wedding here in 2 weeks that will be starting, and we have events happening almost every weekend or every other weekend. We have events, and so they rent the entire space. So that's what we're focusing on this year is the flow of our events, ways that we can improve it. And then this fall, I'm taking my first vacation in a very long time. So that's the goal. We haven't taken a vacation since prior to COVID.
Wow.
Yeah, so we're due for one as a family. I mean, I went to Nashville. Nashville is kind of like a little mini vacation, so
Yes, it
so
is.
that was amazing. But my family, they're really craving for a time to get away and do something off the property because we live and work in the same space. So that's a little challenging.
So do you mind sharing where you guys headed? Disney World? Or are you going somewhere? Where you going?
Well, we don't really know yet. My son and my husband, so we love vintage vehicles. We love, I guess we love all things nostalgic, and they want to take a road trip with take one of the older trucks that we have and just do like a small road trip. I don't know how I feel about that. Part of me wants to just like fly and sit on a beach.
Yeah.
But there's a highway. I don't know if you know this, but there's a highway that has like odd structures. I'm trying to think how I can explain it to you. Um, like you'd be driving down the highway and there would be like a 500-foot tall beach ball. Like just,
Oh, okay.
you know what I'm talking about? Like
Yes, I
just,
do. Mhm.
or there, you'd drive by and all of a sudden there'd be like a collection of humongous dinosaurs or just weird, big rubber band ball. So my son really wants to drive down this highway and see all these things. So that's what he wants to do. I just want to be on a beach, Lenny. I just want a beach and I want a margarita and I want my phone off and that's
Yeah, I
that's all
love
I
it.
want. Yeah.
Well, I
Yeah.
think you have to incorporate like the three in one. Like you might have to sit here and say, how can we, ride through here, see everything there, maybe stay a night, and then but the destination is the beach, and then you head back. You know,
Yeah,
I
I
think
thought about
something like
that,
that might
but
be.
it leads to the center of the country. Like I think
Oh,
it's in like
dang.
Ohio.
Right. Sorry.
Maybe a lake.
Yeah, like maybe the Great Lakes. Maybe I'll head over there. But I want the ocean. I want
Yeah,
music.
yeah.
And I don't want people. Like I love people, but I just want to be left alone for like a week.
Helen, I'm gonna tell you, I'm a beach person, and and it's sad because my wife, she's a beach person too, and but she want to go to like all these other places, and I sit here and use my power of influence to get us back to the beach, and it's a sad thing, and I got to get over that. But question for you: what does find your freedom means to you?
So I've been thinking about this a lot lately. And I'm a Sagittarian. If you know anything about Sagittarians, we don't like to be confined. Like we need space. Um, that's a big thing. And I think for me, I think it's being creative. I think the fact I left teaching was because I wasn't given the opportunity to be creative anymore. And this property has allowed me to be creative. I mean, I got to put a 20-foot tree inside of a building. Like that's fun. That's like really cool things. I got to hang all these crazy stars, above a living room and put a building on top of boulders. I'm getting to be creative again. And I think that was one of the things I was looking for. However, I think my freedom will change as this journey progresses. I do feel that at some point my freedom will not to be creative, but to maybe have more time to travel and look for creativity as opposed to me creating it. So I do think that it'll change as this journey changes. But for right now, my freedom is just having opportunity to be creative and trying new things, and people telling me that you can't put a 20-foot tree in a building, and me saying, yes, you can. Let's figure it out.
I love how you are embracing your creative journey and how it's going to evolve. So I think that's awesome. So
Thanks.
if we can't find you like in is Brookledge, is that's what it's called?
It's
Brookledge?
called Brookledge, yes.
Okay. So if we can't find you at Brookledge or on a road trip or maybe even at the beach, where can the listeners find you?
So on social media, we are Brookledge NY. You need that NY for New York, and we are pretty active on Instagram. So definitely come take a look at our stories and feel free to message me. I love to hear what people. I get some wonderful questions from people and make cool connections. So that's really the best spot is Instagram Brookledge NY, and then also on the Wet in Bed podcast. Ruby and we drop an episode every week, and we love it because we get to talk to investors about what they can do with their property, how they can take their property. And even if you don't, like, I know people are like, I don't want big weddings at my properties. You don't have to. You can be the house that the venue sends for the couple to get ready, or the space where the parents of the bride are going to stay, or the engagement shoot, or the elopement. Like, there's so many things that you can do. And so those are things that Ruby and I help short-term rental hosts figure out and navigate as another possible revenue source. And so that's it drops every single week. And that's kind of where you'd find us, those two places.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. So we're coming to the end of the show. And what we like to do is we like to do this big boom session, right? And the objective of this is to bust some speakers out. All right. So how we're going to do it is I'm going to count to three, 1, 2, 3. And then right after that, in the uniform manner, all of us is going to say boom as loud as we can. All right. Let me know with a head nod or a thumbs up or a yes to let me know if you guys and ladies are ready. All right, listeners, this is the time of the moment that you turn your speakers down because your volume down because it's about to go down. All right. So, all right, they gave me the sign that they're ready. All right. 1, 2, 3.
Boom!
Boom! Awesome, 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 awesome. Listen, we just had a fantastic episode here, with Helen, and she's doing some amazing things. One of the things about her story is that she believed in something and she went after it, and as a family, they come together, they communicate, and they work together to accomplish. And right now, everything is just going her way. And we want you to take out of this episode is that this can be you. Just because you're strapped down and you're working at this job for how long you have been, you can change. And most importantly, what you are learning at what you are doing today is 100% transferable in what you want to do. So, with that being said, make sure that you listen to us, leave a 5-star honest review because we definitely need it and we want to give you more and more and more shows just like this. And we have a freebie for you. It's easily downloadable. It's for you to build up your journey to find your freedom. Just go to www.findyourfreedom.com/freedom kit. Once again, www.findyourfreedom.com/freedom kit. Now we need you to share this episode with all your friends. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you take the link and give it to all your coworkers, the ones that you like and the ones that you don't. Until the next episode at Find Your Freedom, talk to you soon. Peace.
Peace.
Thanks for listening to Find Your Freedom. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. While you're at it, please help us spread the word by leaving a rating and review and sharing the podcast with friends, family, and colleagues. Until next time, get out there and find your freedom.